warm rain hissed against the pale stone of the high tower, sliding down centuries' gold blocks in shimmering veils that caught every lantern light in a trembling web of gold. In the velvet hush before dawn, Oldtown seemed to breathe rather than bustle, its canals murmuring with unseen currents, its steep lanes empty save for the puddled reflections of watch lamps. Downriver fog lapped at the quays like a patient cat, swallowing ship masts one by one, until only the distant creak of rigging betrayed the harbor's slumbering fleet. Within those mists, bells chimed the 6th hour, solemn, measured strokes that drifted upward toward the citadel's many spires. Each low boom rolled through the city, stirring gulls from the rookery, and the sound slipped through archways, past emerald-fronded gardens, and finally stole through a narrow lancet window overlooking the Honeywine. There a girl perched on its inner sill, bare feet dangling above cold stone. She pressed her cheek against the frame's worn limestone and drank the damp air as though it were a draught of freedom. On her lap lay a leather-bound folio, no larger than her two hands pressed side by side, inscribed with the sigil of House Hightower and the 3-linked ring that marked texts reserved for acolytes of the Citadel. The page beneath her thumb held an illuminated diagram of a dragon's skull. She traced the outline of the bony ridges in silence, wondering what voice such a creature might have held, wondering, too, why its memory stirred a pleasant ache in her chest, like longing for a song half remembered. Rain intensified, pelting the roof tiles until the whole city seemed to thrum. Torches on the distant battlements sputtered, glowing fitfully before winking out and leaving only smoke curling against the dawn. Somewhere below, the great bronze doors of the tower groaned as the night guard made his final circuit. The girl listened, counting each echoing footfall until they faded into the ground's heartbeat. Only then did she allow herself to exhale. She was called Nyra Waters by the few who knew her true birth. Waters for all bastards of the Reach, and Nyra because it rolled easily off the tongue and carried no trace of far-flung loyalties. But in corridors where robes rustled like turning pages and silver keys clinked in quiet pockets, she answered to apprentice or girl or simply you. Formal titles were for those sworn by chain and oath. She was still unfledged, her collar bare of metal. Bare, too, of the secrets that pulled at her bones whenever she stared across a brazier's flame, or traced a dragon's curve in dusty ink. Within the cloister below, Archmaester Vaegir bent over a brazier of simmering coals. He was half a century and half again in years, yet his irises gleamed like polished jet, alert despite the rain-worn hour. Wisps of silver hair escaped a velvet cap, drifting in humid currents as though drawn by unseen tides. On his breast rattled a massive chain, black iron for ravenry, yellow gold for history, copper for knowledge of secret speech, and, most surprisingly, one rare link of Valyrian steel, dull as smoke, forged in an era when dragons still filled men's lungs with fire-scorched fear. Vaegir's fingers hovered above parchment, though he penned no letter. Instead, he waited for the night's final bell to fade, as if each toll was a lock spring clicking open. At last he rose, joints popping like distant musket stones beneath a mire. He crossed the chamber and climbed a spiral stair whose steps trembled under every footfall he made. Near the top, wreaths of juniper smoke twined around frescoes too faded to make out. Serpents in blue-green coil, red eyes shining, perhaps. A crowned lion stretched beneath a pale starlit tree. Or maybe shadows and cracks, nothing more. Time had furrowed even memory here, yet in such furrows new seeds could sprout, if tended well. Vaegir reached the small landing where Nyra's window looked eastward. He waited in the doorway, allowing her to sense him before he spoke. She did, of course. She always felt him first, as villagers sense dawn before sun. Without turning, she closed the folio and ran fingers along its spine. "You promised I might study the lives of Vhagar when the mists turned warm." Her voice was hardly above a whisper, but its certainty filled the narrow stairwell. "Patience," Vaegir replied, his timbre smooth as oiled leather. "The Citadel does not measure seasons by fog alone, nor by the restlessness of one young mind." Nyra slid from the sill. The hem of her gray robe brushed her ankles, too long for a growing girl yet lithe enough not to trip her as she padded toward him. "But you told me history is a living creature," she said. "And living creatures do not wait upon bells. Only prey does that." "Or hunters," Vigir said with a hint of admiration. "Yet knowledge is not hunted with spear and hound. It is coaxed, the way a fisherman draws a wary eel." Nyra offered him a crooked smile. "I would rather be dragon than eel." For a heartbeat, the Archmaester's eyes glimmered. "And if you were, who would dare chain you?" She considered, brow puckering. "No one," she answered at last, though uncertainty fled across her features like a cloud's shadow over water. She tucked a damp lock of silver hair behind one ear and stood straighter. "May I copy the plate?" She hefted the folio, thumb still marking the dragon's skull. Vigir studied her posture. Chin high, pupils bright, unfeigned hunger for ink and lore. "You may," he said after the weight of his chain had settled again, "but only if your forms in High Valyrian remain flawless. Sloppy declensions, dishonor, the dead." "Then no. I finished my lines before the storm began." She insisted. His mouth twitched, ever eager. "Very well, but remember, it is not the image alone that matters. You must discover why the artist rendered the nasal passages wider here. He tapped the margin, and why he shaded the ocular ridge as though burnished. Ask the parchment questions until it bleeds answers." "I will," she vowed. And she would. She always did, even when the answers led her somewhere dark. Vigir descended, leaving her with charcoal sticks, vellum, and silent corridors echoing beyond. Nyra set to work, striking flints to relight a guttered lamp. Warm amber flooded outward, chasing rain cloud gloom. She studied the dragon's depiction, ageless, yet half imagined through ink. As her stylus scratched, the skull seemed to shift beneath her gaze, its empty sockets reflecting a flame that lived only in memory, though she had never seen a real dragon. Something about their shape felt familiar, as though her muscles knew how wide wingspans stretched beneath a storm, or how bone vibrated when lungs poured forth fire. Yet such intimacy scared her, and she drew slower, careful not to lose herself. Hours passed. Morning brightened, and Oldtown squares filled with barrowmen pushing carts of oranges and crisp river herbs. Sept bells chimed across the honey wine. Sailing cogs flapped, striped pennants. An army of street urchins laughed while chasing geese along a footbridge. Nyra heard all of it dimly through arrow slits, like distant surf under her quill's lullaby. By noon, hush settled again. She finished the copy and leaned back to ease stiff shoulders. Outside the window, the rain had ceased, leaving the city washed and glimmering. Rooftops shone like beaten bronze. Far below on Saffron Street, a troop of Hightower guards escorted a litter decked in ivory and silk. A noblewoman's thin arm emerged, tossing sprigs of king's mint curl-haired children who ran alongside. Their laughter rose, bright as coins flicked into sunlight. Nyra's pulse quickened, imagining such freedom. To ride in open air, to feel the world wide. She pressed her palm against the glass, cold seeping into skin. One day, she told herself. Behind her, footsteps echoed. Lighter than Vigir's, imperious all the same. Nyra drew breath, turned and offered a curt nod. Before her stood Maester Rennick, crisp-bearded, eyes keen as glass knives. His chain glinted with yellow gold and bronze, yet lacked the leaden link of higher necromancy, an omission he disguised by standing exceptionally tall. "Archmaester Vigir requests your presence in the Owl Hall," he announced. Nyra's gut sparked with nerves. The Owl Hall was where initiates undertook examinations, but she was still years from forging her first ring. Did he say why? Rennick merely raised a brow. If the Archmaester desired your curiosity, he would have provided it. She smoothed her robe, slid parchment and stylus into a satchel, and followed. The corridor vaulted overhead, every footstep swallowed by dust. A soft hush. Tapers lined the path in wrought iron sconces, their flames steady despite the hall's draft. Rennick's robe swished. Nyra's heart matched its cadence. They emerged into the Owl Hall, An ancient chamber whose octagonal walls bore carvings of nightbirds in flight, half of them chipped by time, all of them staring. A brazier burned at the center, filling the air with cedar smoke. Vegir waited beside it, flanked by two other masters, Septa Morwen, draped in dova gray, and Maester Lendrick, whose chain boasted a link of tarnished silver for medicine. Lendrick's left hand rested on a carved staff. Morwen's fingers toyed with a prayer bead. Vegir nodded toward Rennick. "Thank you. Leave us." "Nendawal." Rennick bowed and withdrew, the heavy door thudding shut behind him. Nyra stood alone before the circle of mentors, feeling smaller than parchment scrap. "Step forward," Vegir said, voice stripped of earlier warmth. She obeyed. Smoke coiled around her ankles. The owl carvings, half in shade, half in sun, looked as though they might blink at any moment. Maester Lendrick spoke first. "Name yourself." "Nyra Waters," she replied, voice steady despite pounding pulse. "Origin?" "Oldtown." She paused. Something flickered in Vegir's gaze, but he did not correct her. Septa Morwen's tone was mild. "You were not born here." Nyra swallowed. "Not to my knowledge, Septa." "Knowledge can be flawed," Lendrick murmured. Vegir lifted a hand. "This is not Inquisition, colleagues. We convene to evaluate her aptitude for early collaring." At that, Nyra's lungs froze. Apprentices might occasionally forge their first link before 16 years had passed, but she was little more than 12 summers. Surely too young. Yet she felt fire ignite beneath ribs. Hope, fierce and dangerous. Septa Morwen stepped closer, eyes reflecting flame like coin edges. "Tell me, child, why do you wish to wear the chain?" Nyra answered without hesitation, "Because chains bind knowledge together. One metal alone rings hollow, many metals ring true." "A practiced phrase," Lendrick observed. "But do you grasp its weight?" Nyra met his gaze. "A maester's chain is heavy so he remembers duty, and cold so he remembers humility. Yet each link is forged by heat and hammer. Without fire there is no chain." Vegir smiled faintly, though he masked it behind steepled fingers. Lendrick inclined his head. "Your argument is sound. Yet forging is only one side, wearing is another. Steel may sear skin over years, leaving marks that never fade. Do you accept such scars?" Nyra's voice softened to a whisper, yet carried further than she intended. "I already bear scars you cannot see." The silence that followed thickened like honey. Somewhere above, a gull shrieked, reminding them of life beyond stone. Septa Morwen gestured. "Show us what you have learned." She produced a slim roll of vellum and passed it across the brazier. Nyra unfurled it to reveal a geometric puzzle. Interlocking sigils, runic circles, and lines of old tongue threaded between. "Translate," Morwen ordered. Nyra read, deciphering the old tongue symbols into modern speech. Her cadence was sure, accent subtle, even when faced with archaic phrasing that had tripped seasoned acolytes. When she finished, Morwen nodded once. "Now resolve the cipher," Lendrick said, pointing to the concentric rings. Nyra analyzed the pattern, sigils rotated by prime intervals, shifting cardinal houses of the zodiac dragons. Her mind slipped into the comfortable stillness that came when the world narrowed to symbol and logic. She turned the puzzle in her mind until it clicked, revealing 3 words. "Blood remembers fire." She spoke them aloud. The room's hush deepened. Vegir studied her, as though the phrase had ripped open a curtain, had only glimpsed through a tear. Morwen exhaled. "Ingenious." Lendrick tapped his staff. "One puzzle does not a link earn." "No," Vegir agreed. "But mastery must begin somewhere. She will forge the copper link of memory and learning." Nyra's breath hitched. "Archmaester, truly?" "Yes," he said, voice softer now, pride hidden yet present. "Tomorrow, at dawn, you will present your work to the smiths. Tonight you will meditate on the meaning of remembrance." Septa Morwen added, "and on humility. A chain begun is still as fragile as green glass. Do not mistake recognition for assent." "I will not," Nyra said, though her heart soared on unseen wings. They dismissed her. She left the hall in a daze, each footstep echoing through corridors that seemed suddenly alive, whispering of futures yet unwritten. In the scriptorium she gathered quills, then hurried to her small cell tucked beneath a slanted roof where raven nests crowded eaves. Walls that were bare save for a single scrap of parchment bearing a sketch. A girl on a cliff's edge, arms spread, hair swept back by invisible currents. Nyra had drawn it at 7, though she could not recall the dream that inspired it. Yet whenever she stared too long, the girl's silhouette seemed to waver, as though embers smoldered just beneath the page. That night, rain crept back, steady as a drum, and Nyra dreamed. She stood upon the highest tower, wind furious, sea roaring far below. Overhead constellations blazed, draconic shapes spiraling across the black. She lifted her arms and felt scale beneath her palms, warm and living, as though the stone of the tower had awakened. She clung to something vast that coiled around the spire, and when lightning split the sky, wings unfurled. Translucent membranes patterned like molten glass. She did not see the beast's head, only felt its thought ripple through her blood. An unspoken word, older than the 7. Then the dream shattered, replaced by roiling smoke and 1,000 bells tolling in dissonant fury. She woke gasping, blankets sweat-soaked, palms still tingling. Dawn scraped its pale blade across the horizon. Ravens rustled overhead, cawing hoarse morning prayers. Nyra dressed, heart fluttering but resolved. She wound through empty corridors until she reached the chapel forge deep beneath the citadel. The chamber was anvil-shaped, older than recorded time. Its walls glistened with hammer scars. Its forge fire burned green where copper melted. 3 journeyman smiths stood ready, hammers poised. Vegir supervised, chain shimmering like a slow meteor shower around his shoulders. Nyra presented her parchment, a treatise on livid memory. How the mind catalogued events, how trauma etched deeper grooves, how scent summoned ghosts of moments thought lost. She cited Maester Peristan on cognitive patterns, Septon Barth on draconic recollections, and then, boldly, her own hypothesis that lineage could transmit memory through blood, weaving identity beyond mortal lifespan. Vegir's brow quirked at that. The smiths examined her calligraphy, her reasoning, her delicate diagrams of hippocampal fissures. They found no fault. Begin, Vegir told her. She plunged copper ingots into crucible. Flames spat bright. Bellows groaned. The forge's roar drowned her thoughts until only rhythm remained. Heat, hammer, fold, quench. Again, again. Copper glowed white, then red, then sullen brown. She drew it forth, shaped it around an iron mandrel, closing the loop. Sparks scattered like fireflies. Sweat stung eyes, but she did not falter. At last, the link lay cooling, its ends fused perfect. She lifted it before Vegir. The metal reflected the forge's fire, and for an instant showed flickering shapes behind flame. Towers crumbling, a silver-haired woman screaming skyward, black wings blotting sun. Nyra blinked, and the visions dissolved. Vegir clasped the link. With ceremonial tongs he affixed it to a slender leather strap, then draped it across her shoulders. It rested against collarbone, weight slight yet infinite. Something pulsed beneath her skin in answer, as though the link had found matching metal within her heart, and locked tight. Learn well, Vegir murmured. So soft only she heard. For memory is more than record, it is seed. Nyra bowed. I will make it flower. Months slid by like sand through loosened glass. Nyra's days brimmed with lessons in ravenry and healing, astronomy and cipher, but she returned always to dragons. She studied bone lengths unearthed from Valeria's graveyards. She mapped rumors of hatchling sightings along the smoking sea. She tested reagents rumored to rekindle fossilized eggs, though none responded. At dusk, she sat atop the roof of the Ravenry, cloak whipped by salt wind, reading spoiled tide charts until stars prickled overhead. There, sometimes. She felt it again. A heartbeat beyond her own, a tether pulling east across ocean's yawning black. Word came of unrest beyond reach. The Greyjoys raiding Lannisport, the king's hand quelling dissent along the Dornish marches. Nyra listened to such talk as one might to distant thunder, curious, remote. Yet inside she sensed threads tugging, weaving unknown designs. One evening, as leaves turned amber and Oldtown's wine-sour orchards perfumed the air, Vaegir summoned her to a hidden cloister. Lamps burned low. On a marble plinth rested a small chest carved of black teak, bound by a pale braid of vines she recognized. Ghostgrass, an herb that killed with a kiss of midnight. Such leaves grew only across the narrow sea, in the ash-strewn wastes of kings long drowned. Vaegir dismissed other acolytes. Only Nyra stayed. He opened the chest. Inside lay a single object wrapped in violet silk. When he pulled cloth away, moonlight struck polished surface, and Nyra's breath left her in a rush. An uncut gemstone, smooth and warm-toned. Not ruby, nor sapphire, but something deeper, swirling with embers trapped in glass. "Do you know it?" Vaegir asked. Nyra reached out, hesitant. The stone thrummed. Faint, but steady. A dragon's egg. She whispered. "Perhaps," he said. It was found on a Lacini merchant, hidden beneath spices of saffron and clove. He died of fever before revealing its origin. I have worked to confirm authenticity and failed. But you," he paused, weighing words, "you feel things others do not." She closed fingers around the egg. A shock pricked skin, not pain, almost reassurance. Heat pulsed, radiating up her arm. Her mind filled with images. Coiled shadows, molten rivers, a lullaby in ancient tongue. Tears sprang unbidden. She clutched the egg like a heartbeat retrieved. Vaegir watched, expression unreadable. "Tell no one," he said. "Keep it hidden. Study, but do not wake it. The world is not ready." Nyra nodded, though part of her recoiled at the command. She wrapped the egg again, nestling it against her ribs inside robe folds. It felt lighter than memory and heavier than doom. That night she returned to her chamber, lighting no lamp. She lay awake listening to the egg's whisper. Not words exactly, more like the hiss of a distant forge, the crack of shell, the first inhale of flame. She wondered what sort of mother dragons had, if they dreamed of open sky while still bound in stone prisons. Sleep claimed her near dawn. She dreamed of herself older, standing before a council of gray-robed men, chains clinking loud, and she set the egg upon a dais. Their mouths moved, but no sound left them. She spoke instead, a single syllable that opened like a door, and fire danced along the hall's rafters. When morning burned through shutters, she rose with new purpose. Lessons continued. Fermentation of Myrish wines, charting lunar nodes, dissecting owls' pellets for rodent bones. But now every action, every breath fed into a secret study. How to stir stone to life. She devoured obscure treatises, traveling by ink across far continents, histories whispered only between pages, smudged by lost kings. She copied spells from Valyrian scroll fragments, though many lines eroded to meaningless scratches. She stole coals from the forges, building small furnace in an abandoned crypt. There she placed the egg, turning it slowly beneath moderate flame, listening for the hush of life. Septa Morwen noticed her fatigue, eyes ringed, hands ink-stained, and counseled rest. Nyra nodded obediently, then returned to library at midnight. Lendrick glimpsed her scribbling formulas in margins of herbals. He grunted approval, assuming zeal for medicine. Only Vaegir suspected truth, yet he did not interfere. Instead he kept watch from afar, like a father viewing son's first ride, prepared to catch if they fell, but not before. Seasons turned. Snow never reached Oldtown's marble quays, yet wind sharpened, and Nyra's breath smoked when she slipped from bed pre-dawn to stoke the hidden furnace. The egg grew warmer in her palms. She would cradle it beneath cloak like a babe, imagining wings beating inside. She sang to it in old Valyrian learned from dusty tomes, voice lilting through catacombs. On the 9th moon of her 13th year, storm clouds gathered, bruising the horizon violet. Sailors moored their vessels early. Fishermen hauled nets ashore. Lightning cracked the sky, forking across the honeywine like shattered glass. When first thunder boomed, Nero woke from uneasy doze in crypt. Egg resting on silk upon altar of broken brick. Flames dimmed as wind howled through vents. A deep tremor shook floor dust loose. Yet the egg pulsed bright, casting flickers against vault ceiling. Nera approached, heartbeat matching its glow. She reached out. The crypt door slammed open. Vaegir stood, gray cloak snapping, eyes burning hotter than forge. "Enough," he thundered. He strode forward, dousing flames with swift kicks of sand. Sparks dyed queasy green. Nera backed away. "It's waking," she cried. "Or you are," he replied. He seized the egg, but it seared his gloves. He gritted teeth, refusing to drop it. "You forget promise. Study, do not hatch." Beneath his words trembled fear. "I feel it," she insisted. "It calls to me. Because you are blood of the dragon," he said, low. "And because the world is not finished with their ruin. Do you wish to summon that storm again?" Thunder crashed in reply, shaking stones overhead. Nyra stared at him. He had never spoken of her lineage so plainly. Tears mixed with sweat. "Tell me," she whispered, voice breaking. "Tell me what I am." He closed eyes, breathing heavily. Rain hammered crypt roof. At last he spoke. "Your true name is Daenerys Targaryen." She staggered. In her mind, the syllables rippled like tidal surge, stirring shapes half submerged. Visions of red keep halls, of a smiling brother with haunted eyes, of firelit feasts where three-headed dragons adorned every wall. None memory, and yet all intimately familiar. Vaegir continued. "You were brought to me swaddled in purple cloth by Sir Barrion Mormont, who fled assassins across narrow sea. He died upon arrival, wounds bound with silk. His last wish, keep you safe until realm forgets your name or forgives it. I swore, for I once served your grandsire as court healer in King's Landing, until the usurper's banners rose, and fire consumed the throne." Daenshao, Nyra, Daenerys, felt her knees give. She sank against cold wall, tears tracing cheeks. "Why keep me from truth?" "Because truth is blade and balm both," Vaegir said softly. "Too sharp for chilled hands." She looked at the egg aflame in his grasp. "It belongs to me." "Perhaps," he allowed. "Yet possession is danger. Robert Baratheon's spies still scour seas for dragon seeds. If you awaken this, then they will come." She finished. In her voice, fear warred with thrill. She stood, wiping tears. "Let them." Vaegir shook his head. "I will not let your spark ignite war again." "War already churns," she said. "The reach falters. The Ironborn raid. Dorne plots. Dragons could restore order. Or add to chaos," he countered. Lightning seared the crypt window, followed by crash that dulled ears. The egg glowed brighter, as if fed by storm. Vaegir cursed under breath, plunging it back into chest, lined with lead. The lid slammed. Instantly its light vanished, though heat still bled through seams. He faced her, eyes softening. "This is not refusal forever, but you must learn control. Of mind, of fire within. When you bear chain enough to hold that heat, then we decide." Daenerys steadied herself. Anger cooled, leaving resolve tempered like copper under hammer. "Very well," she said. "Teach me." So began a new apprenticeship, tougher than any before. Vaegir drilled her in rhetoric, diplomacy, anatomy of fear. She studied history of conquests, not as triumph but cautionary tale. She practiced speaking in measured tones until her temper lay beneath glass. She forged 2 additional links, pale silver for medicine, black iron for ravenry, each ring reminding her of promise. Chains first, flames later. Yet at night she still visited crypt, sitting before the chest, palm resting on cool teak. Listening, the egg murmured like sea under ice. She whispered back, telling it stories of cities' scents, fresh eel, lamp oil, crushed thyme from apothecary stalls. She described sunset's ochre glow on river, how children's laughter carried across bridges, and she told it of future sky she imagined they would share, endless sun-kissed, unmarred by smoke. Years advanced, 3, then 4. Daenerys grew tall, voice smoothing into low velvet. Her hair, pale as dawn, she kept braided tight per citadel custom. The stray wisps framed high cheekbones. She now wore 5 links: copper, silver, black iron, pewter for trades, and a slender Valyrian steel link earned after deciphering a codex none could open. Few apprentices yet bore that rare metal. Masters eyed her with awe and unease. Rumors traveled faster than ravens. A silver girl forging impossible feats. Archmaesters debating her candidacy for full chain before 16. Some whispered of Targaryen blood. Others called her witch. Daenerys learned to navigate suspicion with smiles as sharp as needles. One crisp autumn dawn, she climbed the high tower again. Mists parted, unveiling Oldtown's sprawl. Below, Honeywine glimmered like a great serpent. Beyond, fields rolled gold toward horizon. She felt wind catch cloak, saw gulls wheel. In chest pocket rested the egg, now carried openly in small cloth satchel lined with wool. Vaegir had relented, perhaps sensing futility. She took it out, letting sunrise paint molten streaks across shell. Heat bloomed, warmer than before. She closed eyes and heard, or thought she heard, a crack, fine as spider silk. When she opened them, a single hairline traced the surface. She gasped, heart hammering. But towers below stirred, guards moved along parapets. Bells began their morning call. Duty called with them. Daenerys pressed lips to shell, whispering, "Not yet." She tucked it away, descended. Below, a courier waited, dust-shaked, exhausted. He bore a sealed letter addressed to Archmaester Vaegir, and to her. The wax bore stag crowned in antlers, royal crest. Daenerys' pulse quickened. She broke seal while Vaegir watched, eyes narrowed. Inside lay command directly from King's Landing. Maester Vaegir and his prodigy were summoned to the capital to advise on rumored ghost fires erupting along Blackwater Rush. The small council sought scholarly insight. They offered escort under House Hightower guard. Vaegir read, frowning. He suspected trap, yet refusal itself might invite suspicion. Daenerys, however, felt a strange calm, like chess piece sliding closer to opposite king, path inevitable. She thought of the crack in the egg. Perhaps destiny stirred. That night she returned to crypt once more. Flames low. She held the egg, tracing fissure. It widened imperceptibly beneath thumb, a soft pop like seed husk breaking. Tiny flickers pulsed beneath shell. Crimson gold. Tears filled her eyes. Wonder, terror entwined. She whispered, "Soon," and the egg pulsed in answer. Above, thunder rumbled again though sky was clear. A storm unborn yet certain, gathering beyond horizon. And so Daenerys Targaryen, raised among chains and scrolls, mind honed by copper and steel, stood upon threshold of kingdoms that had forgotten her name. She breathed deep of forger smoke, river salt, coming fire, and felt at last whole. Maester and dragon both, bound by memory, ready to step into dawn that might burn or bloom depending on her will. As dawn's first light kissed the citadel's highest vein, where distant coasts dreamed, behind her, the bell tower tolled. Not dirge, not triumph, but a note of becoming. She listened until its echo sank into bone, and with it carried the hush of wings unfolding beyond sight. The story was only beginning. A waxen moon had waned to a sickle when the column rode out of Oldtown. No banners fluttered above them, only plain gray pennons that named the escort as servants of study, not of war. But 20 high tower guards in burnished half-plate still flanked the litter-bearing Archmaester Vaegir and his ward. Hooves clacked across the river arches, their cadence swallowed by the hush of sleeping streets. Yet behind shuttered windows, curious eyes counted every rider until the gloom draped them once again. Harbor bells tolled farewell in minor key. Daenerys sat beside Vaegir under drab canvas, fingers stroking the velvet satchel hidden beneath her cloak. With every mile she felt the eggs pulse stronger, as though proximity to open road hastened whatever lived within. She breathed slow and deep, matching her heartbeat to its dim glow, and tried not to picture flames scorching the litter's curtains. Daylight unveiled autumn countryside painted in ochres and wine reds. Fields of barley bowed beneath wind like penitents. Hedgerows crackled with sparrows fattening for winter. The procession moved north along the Rose Road, stopping at wayhouses whose keepers bowed low when shown Vaegir's copper and steel chain. They offered spiced ale, mutton barley stew, crisp pears. Vaegir took only broth, Daenerys little more. Evenings found her pacing stable yards long after guards dozed. By third night she knew each horse's breath like a stanza of verse, each creak of leather harness. Sleep came fitful, filled with images of twisting roots through marble floors and green wildfire, seeping from cracks in keep walls, oozing like sap. On the seventh dawn the land grew rougher, rolling hills rising like frozen waves. Gnarled oaks clutched ancient cairns, ruined septs dotted ridgelines like broken crowns. Here, traffic thickened. Grain carts bound south, sellswards traveling opposite, peddlers hawking lion-carved hairpins said to bless the wearer with courage. At one crossroads, a cluster of small folk encircled a barefoot septon, preaching repentance for darkness to come. Flames will claim sinners and righteous alike, he cried, thrusting a wooden staff skyward. His words shivered through Daenerys' marrow, as though spoken to her alone. The egg throbbed in answer. She urged her mare past before the septon's fevered gaze could alight on her cloak-fastened satchel. 2 days onward they reached Bitterbridge. The Mander ran broad and brown here, ferrying barges stacked with late apples and sacks of nutmeg from the Shield Islands. The column lingered at the inn while fresh mounts were bargained. Daenerys slipped away to gaze over the water. River mist chilled her cheeks, but inside she burned. She pressed a palm to the satchel's lining, feeling hairline cracks growing wider by unseen degrees. She imagined shell flaking like frost beneath sunrise and a creature's first tremulous whimper. The sound lived in her skull now, more memory than foresight. Vaegir found her on the quay. His cloak whipped in damp wind, silver hair clung to his temples. "You eat little," he observed. "How can I swallow meat when flames churn within?" She regretted the candor, but could not retract it. He studied her, eyes darker than river silt. "The small council will ask questions you may not wish to answer. Then I will answer what serves," she said. "Gaze on distant reeds where white egrets fished, and keep silence on what would ignite pyres." A gull screeched overhead, punctuating oath. Vaegir's shoulders eased. Perhaps he recognized steel newly forged in her spine. He glanced about, ensuring guards lingered out of earshot, then drew a letter from sleeve, sigil stamped with gilded rose. "Lady Marguerite Tyrell sends greetings," he said. "Her grandmother's circle keeps many listening birds. Word of a silver apprentice has reached the court already." "Then Sunday." Daenerys frowned. "So soon?" "Rumor is the herb that seeds quicker than dandelion." He tapped the parchment. "They wish to host us at Highgarden en route." I declined. She exhaled relief she hadn't known held. "Politics would slow us." "And swallow us," he added, eyes atilt. "The Tyrells nurture ambition beneath perfume. They might cage a hatchling to scent its smoke." A gust rattled chains on his chest. The Valyrian link dulled like storm glass. He returned letter to sleeve. Together they watched barges drift under bridge, sails slack, before turning back to inn. That night the inn's taproom throbbed with merriment. Lute strings, dice clatter, a piper droning ballads of Garth Greenhand. Daenerys sat apart with quill and parchment. sketching cyclic diagrams of heat transference she had memorized from Valyrian tablet fragments. She traced spiral vectors repeatedly until the lines blurred, then blinked up to see a shadow standing across the table. He was near her age yet already bore stubble, the color of chestnut. A gambeson of quilted leather hugged broad shoulders. At his belt hung a short-bladed arming sword well cared for. He bowed with markedly courtly grace for an inn, thrumming with sellswords. "I beg pardon, mistress," he said, voice low. "I seek the Archmaester traveling north. They said his ward might be here." Daenerys studied him. Eyes russet, no sigil visible. "Your name?" "Sir." He hesitated, glanced over his shoulder. "Davith Rivers," he concluded, though the pause rang false. She recalled Vaegir's warnings. Her left hand brushed satchel. "Why would an inn full of knights send one to me?" "Because I bear message of import." He produced a rolled vellum bound with simple twine. "For Maester Vaegir's gaze, but perhaps you may vouchsafe it." She accepted but did not unroll. "Who entrusts Davith Rivers with such?" Again that flicker. "A friend to knowledge. One who'd rather remain veiled until wisdom prevails." He bowed once more, stepped back into raucous hall, and vanished amid tankard clinks. She scanned room but lost him between spinning couples. Back in her berth she unfurled the vellum. No words, only an inked sigil she could scarce credit. Three-headed dragon crowned with chain links. Beneath it, a single line in high Valyrian cursive. "Fire remembers the name you hid." Another line, smaller, beneath red keep crypts. "Tongues of shadow wake." Her pulse drummed. She burned the vellum in candle flame, grinding ash into chamber pot. But the warning, or invitation, etched into mind. 3 dawns later, they had left the reach. Stonebridge Arch behind. Fields faded to bristling scrub where rabbits darted from foxcall. Camps grew leaner. They ate oatcakes and dried figs, water from spring pools. The eggshell no longer smooth. A lattice of fissures spidered its curvature. To disguise the glow, she wrapped it in lamb's wool steeped in blue dye from island indigo. Each crack exhaled warmth. The dye dried instantly, staining cloth in fractal bursts like frozen lightning. At dusk on 9th day, vanguard scouts rode back with news. Refugee trains clotted the King's Road south of Blackwater. Bands of riverlords had clashed with marauders. Villages burned. Smoke pillars marred horizon. Vaegir ordered detour east to Byford, then south along Windwater's forest paths. Longer, but safer than turmoil. Guards murmured but obeyed. Night pressed early beneath woods. Lanterns flickered like captive stars. Owls hooted above. Distant wolves answered. Near midnight, Daenerys walked at column's center, egg cradled beneath cloak. Her breath puffed, silver. She felt world holding hush, as though every unseen beast paused to listen. Then, from within shell, a faint scratching. So soft she wondered if imagination. She pressed ear. Again, a brittle tap. Tap. She gasped, nearly dropping it. Motion behind startled her. A guard trudged past, yawning. He paid her no heed. She ducked into bracken deeper off trail, where moonlight lanced through boughs. She knelt, unwrapping wool. Soft glow spilled over moss. Another tap. A flake of shell lifted, revealing an ember-red membrane beneath. Her throat tightened with joy and fear mingled. A dry twig snapped. She spun. Sir Davith Rivers emerged from dark, blade drawn but lowered. "Stay back," she hissed, shielding egg. He raised empty hand. "I followed to ensure you saw true message." "How did you find us?" "I served in Knight's Guard of Prince Aegon until Connington fell," he said quickly. "When Griff's rebellion failed, I fled. Your brother lives exiled yet, but spies whisper the dragon's daughter walks south. I thought ruse, until you burned the parchment." She digested cascade of names. Rumors of a hidden prince she had never met. Wars across sea she scarcely studied. "If you know my blood," she said, "why come alone?" "Because many who seek you would bind you." He sheathed sword, palms outward. I come to serve. Lightning flickered behind clouds, though sky dry. Her egg's warmth flared. She shook head. Service sworn in darkness births shadow. Then test me, he said. He knelt, offering weapon hilt first. Take my steel. Strike me if unworthy. The sudden deference stirred an ache, echo of kingship beyond her, yet heavy all the same. She touched hilt, felt leather ridges warm from his palm. She did not pull blade free. Instead she asked, "What are ghost fires upon Blackwater?" His brow creased. Reports of green flame rising from drains at twilight. Ratcatchers found piles of smoking ash that once were men. He hesitated. Whispers blame arcane alchemists. Wildfire. She breathed. Davith nodded. Like that which slew King Aerys's horde. Her heart hammered. Memories not her own surged. Screens of sapphire blaze. Corridors melting. Smell of cooked flesh. She inhaled, let them pass. Rise, she said. He stood, uncertain. She returned blade. Keep secret you saw this. She gestured at egg. As you wish, princess. She hid a shiver at title. My name is Daenerys, but to others, still Nyra. We travel in shadows until dawn chooses. Nancy. He bowed. Then dawn, I shall seek. They parted. She rejoined column before absence noted. Inside litter, she found Vaegir awake, candle burning. He eyed her mud-stained boots. Dreamwalk. A hatchling stirs, she said quietly. She bared egg to him. Slivers of shell hung like broken glass. He drew breath deep, reverent and fearful. We near a nest of vipers, he muttered. Better this began in open desert than within king's walls. We cannot outrun break of shell. She answered. He studied her gaze, found steel again. Then we pray its cry is whispered. 3 leagues past dawn they cleared tree line and beheld the Blackwater rush snaking under morning fog. Beyond, King's Landing sprawled, brick and stone stacked between hills, smoke curling from smithies, sept spires shimmering like candle-wax stalagmites. The red keep loomed crimson upon Aegon's hill. Its battlements tiled deep rust. Lower city resembled ant heap, movement constant. From here the clamor rose faint, but smell, charcoal, tanneries, river rot, wafted strong even at distance. Gate guards inspected convoy. Vaegir presented scroll sealed by hand. They waived entry after cursory searches. Daenerys kept satchel hidden beneath blanket, though if any had felt warmth, they might think hot bricks for travel stiffness. Inside walls, streets churned with wagons, fishmongers bellowing, rag-clad children chasing stray dogs. Guards carved path, yet progress slow. Now and then a sailor glimpsed Daenerys' hair and whistled. She lowered hood. They climbed hill to Maegor's Holdfast, where lords' banners lined courtyard. Stag, lion, rose, kraken, horse. Gold cloaks guided them through vaulted passages still damp from morning scrub. Finally, they arrived at council antechamber, draped in tapestries faded to pastel ghosts. Pages offered watered wine. Daenerys' stomach turned at sweet. She refused. Door swung wide. Herald announced, Archmaester Vaegir of the Citadel and apprentice Nyra Waters summoned to advise the council of his grace. They entered. Council table stretched long, wood dark as seasoned blood. At its head sat Lord Jon Arryn, the Hand, face pallid. Eyes rimmed crimson from sleepless months of tension, in court watchers said fracturing. Beside him, Grand Maester Pycelle's snowy beard brushed gilded links. He pursed lips at Vaegir's arrival, perhaps bristling at another scholar's inclusion. Stannis Baratheon glowered, fingertips drumming. Renly offered lazy smile. Lord Varys hovered, whisper soft. Littlefinger flicked coin between fingers. Sir Barristan Selmy stood sentinel. Arryn motioned seats. We thank the Citadel for promptness. Vaegir inclined. Knowledge walks swift when shadows lengthen. Pycelle harumphed. We have maesters aplenty within these walls, Archmaester. Yet none with Vaegir's link, Aaron cut in. His voice brittle. Nor with his apprentices' talents. All eyes shifted to Daenerys. She bowed slightly, heart beating double cadence. She sensed half the lords measuring her as potential spy. Half as curiosity. Varys' orbs gleamed too keenly. She avoided them. Aaron unrolled charcoal sketches. Sewers, tunnels. 4 nights passed. Night soil men in the dragon-tail drains witnessed green fire spitting from cracks. 2 burned beyond healing. Day later, hidden vault collapsed beneath Cobbler's Square, leaving crater ringed in glass. Wildfire, says Alchemists Guild. But they deny culpability. We suspect caches from the Mad King remain unrecovered. Them too? Stannis spoke. Voice stone. We ordered stock burned years ago. If survivors linger, we root them out, not call old men with books. Vaegir answered evenly. Ghost flame obeys alchemy, but also memory. Targaryen kings hid jars and cryptic patterns keyed to stars. Without their lineage's cipher, you search blind. Eyes narrowed. Pycelle coughed, beard quivering. Those ciphers died with Maester Belgarian. Daenerys found her mouth moving before thought. Not all. Silence engulfed Hall. She felt Vaegir stiffen. Renly leaned forward, grin curious. And you, young mistress, claim to read ashes? She steadied breath. Only to map their winds. Show me remains. And star charts of night caches were set. I may trace design. Pycelle scoffed. Little fingers coin stilled mid-flip. Varys' silk-soft voice wove. Wisdom knows no age, yet risk weighs heavier than parchment. What if we follow false trail and ignite further havoc? Bow. Daenerys met his gaze. Better to risk map than wander dark with torch. Aaron considered. Your proposal? I will descend with Vaegir into first affected vaults. We study residue, compare to Valyrian alignments. We craft index. Meanwhile, your masons sure supports. When we present pattern, you unearth rest with caution. Stannis scowled but nodded stiffly. If fails, their chains melt. Wildfire will melt more than chains. Selmy muttered. Agreement reached, council dissolved to individual murmurs. Pycelle cornered Vaegir, hissing about hubris. Littlefinger sidled near Daenerys, voice oily. If you chart flame, you earn much coin. Coin buys space to hatch ambitions. She smiled politely, excused herself. After, servants escorted them to guest apartments overlooking eastern city wall. As door closed, Daenerys set satchel on table. Vaegir barred latch, voice low. You dangle precipice. Coffer of wildfire can raise half city. She said. We must diffuse, and reveal knowledge impossible for waters born in reach. Then truth may out sooner than hush. He sighed, but eyes held reluctant pride. We tread razors. At dusk gold cloaks guided them through labyrinthine warrens beneath Rainey's hill. Sewers stank of rot, but char. Where green flames had burned smelled metallic, like coins boiled in blood. Daenerys knelt by blackened stones. She closed eyes, inhaled residue. To her mind, patterns bloomed. Swirling eddies of heat. Star-shaped cluster echoing constellations. Symbol of 3 dragons overlapping. She sketched quickly. Vaegir compared to ancient charts he'd copied. Alignments of comet passes during reign of King Maegor. Lines converged on undercrypt of Red Keep. Vault rumored collapsed after sack, but sealed. They presented findings next sunrise. Council dispatched miners to test. Within hours, narrow shaft uncovered chamber ringed with spent wildfire pots, many cracked but cooled. Deeper still they found sealed alcoves thrumming faintly. Untouched caches. Work halted. Lords praised Nyra's improbable map. But victory birthed suspicion. At feast that night in small hall, Renly toasted our drab-cloaked dragoness, drawing laughter that curdled Daenerys' stomach. Varys whispered with Pycelle. Littlefinger weighed her with predator patience. Only Selmy looked upon her with quiet recognition, as though glimpsing ghost of queen unborn. She avoided his eyes. Later, she wandered garden terraces, scented with night air jasmines. Moon poured silver across rooftops. City's roar dulled to distant weep. At arched overlook she met Davith, leaning on parapet. "Word spreads," he said. "Some call you witch, others savior." She touched Satchel. "Let them decide when dawn burns." Something in her tone made him straighten. "It hatches soon?" She started to answer when hush rippled breeze, faint swish of cloth behind hedge. She pivoted, a dart hissed, embedding in marble an inch from her face. Davith drew sword, lunged. From shadows spilled two cloaked figures. Steel rang under moon. Daenerys ducked, pulled narrow fruit knife. Heat pulsed at chest. One assassin slashed. She parried clumsily, blade scraping. Davith skewered other, turning to aid. Second attacker tossed vial. It shattered at her feet, green liquid sizzling. She leapt back as flames erupted. Davith tackled her, rolling them beyond gout of verdant fire. Guards came running. Assailant fled. Cloak of flame toppled over balustrade into dark. Smoke and jasmine mingled. Flames sputtered then died. Daenerys' pulse pounded. The egg inside Satchel burned, cracks widening. She felt it bleed heat through cloth. She clutched Davith's arm. "We must move." They hurried through corridors to Vegir's chamber. He listened grimly, examined dart head, coated in stranger's kiss, a poison of lice. "Someone fears you. Or fears dragon," she said, revealing fissured shell. Vegir blanched. "The time is now." He paced. "Hatching in keep could doom us, but to smuggle outside walls risks exposure." Thunder rolled though sky clear. Egg brightened, shedding embers onto rug. Fibers smoked. Davith and Vegir exchanged glance, both nodded. Vegir retrieved satchel of reagents, vials of stormwater, chalk data. "We descend to the undercrypt. If wildfire caches laid there, heat sinks may draw flame away from sleeping keep." Then, and they moved swift through lamplit halls. Davith in guard livery forging path, down spiral stair unused, past rusted portcullis Vegir, unlocked with iron picks. Lichen-draped corridors sloped into darkness. Occasional alcoves housed crumbling dragon skulls, eyes hollow. Daenerys' shadow merged with theirs. At last, they reached massive door of black oak, banded with bronze. Symbols chiseled before Aegon's conquest-lined arch. Runes of old Valyria for birth, blood, renewal. Vegir brushed dust away. "I saw these beneath Oldtown crypt," he murmured. "Key lies in flame speech." He passed chalk to Daenerys. She closed eyes, listened to Egg's rhythm. Then to memory of Valyrian lullaby she nightly sang. She traced sigils on door. 3 spirals interlocked, ending in star. She pressed palm to center. Heat surged through chalk. Lines glowed red. Groan of gears followed. Door cracked open, exhaling air cool as tomb yet laced with brimstone. They stepped into vast cavern. Torchlight revealed pillars carved as dragons winding to vaulted ceiling lost in gloom. The floor shaped like 7-pointed star, each point marked by brazier long dead. At center lay shallow pit, lined with dark sand. Vegir gasped. This was birthing chamber. Daenerys knelt at pit's edge. Egg pulsed violently, cracks wept sparks. She set it on sand. Vegir scattered powdered obsidian in a circle. Chanting low, Davith stood guard at doorway. The shell rattled, fragments shedding like petals. A shrill chirrup pierced cavern, half hiss, half whistle. Flame burst not outward but inward, sucked into swirling vortices above Egg, coalescing into plume of orange gold that spiraled skyward, then rained sparks like meteor shower. Sand shifted. Egg split open. A creature no larger than hawk unfolded, wings slick with fluid, scales glossy black streaked with silver veins. Eyes opened, twin pools of molten copper. It tottered, squeaked. Daenerys' lungs emptied. She reached trembling hand. Hatchling sniffed finger. Nipped latch became gentle. Then climbed onto her palm. Talons pricking skin. Warmth spread from contact to elbow, then heart. But this warmth was different. Alive, exhilarating. She pressed it to chest. It chirruped, nuzzled throat. Vaegir exhaled wonder. The last dragon hatched a century past. Not last, she said, tears glistening. The first of new. She felt bond knitting them like sinew. Davith knelt, awe etched. My queen, he whispered. She shook head but did not correct. Crack echoed from passage. They whirled. Figures advanced. Gold cloaks, but helms black enamel, no sigils. At their head strode Lord Varys, silk robes parted by quick steps. Behind, Pycelle shuffled, face pale. My, Varys cooed, voice carrying. I wondered what heat the Maesters' mind. A dragon it was. Guards leveled spears. Davith stepped forward, sword bared. Vaegir clutched pouch of glass spheres fizzing with wildfire solution. One wrong move in cavern could become pyre. Daenerys stood, dragonling perched on shoulder, wings unfurling in tremble. Why follow? Varys spread hands. I serve realm. A living dragon within Red Keep is peril none may ignore. Peril or salvation? She countered. Pycelle wheezed. Abomination born of tyranny. The dragon hissed, small tongue flicking sparks. Daenerys' spine straightened. This creature owes loyalty to none yet. But kill us and flame you fear will devour city. Stand aside. Varys' eyes glittered. I cannot. The king must know. Daenerys glanced at Vaegir. He nodded. She felt answer before asking. There would be no peaceful retreat. She inhaled, focusing on bond. She pictured warmth growing within hatchling's chest. It chirped, throat glowing faint. Spears braced. Davith poised. Daenerys whispered in Valyrian. Dracarys. A puff of pale flame erupted. Brief but dazzling, licking air before dying. Enough to send guards stumbling. Vaegir hurled a glass sphere. Green fire whooshed, blocking passage in wall of searing light. Screams echoed. Smoke billowed. Davith seized Daenerys' wrist, leading deeper into chamber where another tunnel yawned. They sprinted. Hatchling clinging. Wings beating excited. Passage twisted. The heat of wildfire roared behind. But air ahead grew cooler. Rush of draft promising exit. Stone stair ascended. They emerged in forgotten storage beneath Tower of the Hand. Night outside. Alarm bells began clanging. Davith led them through servant stairs to rookery balcony. Moon bright. City below chaotic, shouts of fire spreading. Guards search. Vaegir warned. We must leave walls. Davith pointed to postern gate, unused by watch, accessible via cliffside aqueduct. I smuggled sellswards there once. They hurried. Daenerys' mind reeled. King's men burned, Varys escaped or charred. City aflame, but immediate focus. Survival. At gatehouse, they surprised 2 drowsy sentries. Davith dispatched hilt blow. Vaegir sprinkled poppy dust. They slipped onto moonlit switchback path, descending to riverbank, where small fishing skiff bobbed. They pushed off, oars creaking. Dragonling perched on prow, sniffing river breeze. Behind them, flames glowed within keep windows. Bells tolled alarm. Yet Blackwater's current carried them northward toward storm-swept bay. Vaegir slumped, exhaustion dragging. Davith counted constellations to steer by stars. Daenerys cradled dragon, naming him Syrian after River of Stars. Maesters claimed, flowed through heavens. He chirruped answer, eyes bright. Under cloak of clouds they rode until dawn streaked eastern sky. Riverbanks grew marshy, reeds tall as men. They beached skiff upon mudflats, hid beneath willow boughs. Vaegir spread, map.ot. River run lies upriver day's ride. Tullies may shelter outlaws to spite Crown. Crown hunts dragons, Davith argued. Better sail east to Stepstones than across narrow sea. Your kin gather strength there. Daenerys considered horizon. Across water lay Essos. Free cities, Dothraki Sea. Stories of hidden prince. Yet Westeros was birthright. Hers though stolen. She looked at Syrian, then at Vaegir. Father in all but blood. I will not run forever. But I will grow strong where enemies least expect. East we sail, yet not to hide, to sharpen talons. Vaegir raised brow. A forge must temper blade. Davith grinned ruefully. We'll need coin crew. Ship bigger than skiff. Daenerys smirked. Knowledge buys coin. Dragons buy loyalty. We have both. Overhead, Syrian beat fledgling wings, launching clumsily from arm to low branch. Sunlit dew steamed on scales, revealing iridescent blue flecks hidden before. He chirped, triumphant. In that moment Daenerys felt path open. Uncertain, perilous, ablaze with promise. Chains of learning coiled about her like armor. Fire of blood pulsed anew. She was Maester and mother of dragon, exile and heir. The quest to reclaim, or redefine, home would span seas and seasons. But dawn already blushed with possibility. They gathered meager packs, set off along marsh trail where reeds whispered secrets. Behind them smoke from King's Landing thinned to haze, carrying rumor of green ghosts and silver witch vanished. Ahead, river glimmered like polished steel, pointing toward sea and beyond, to myth's horizons. Daenerys quickened stride, Syrian gliding overhead in jerky flaps. Each footfall echoed lesson Vaegir once taught. Memory is seed, and with every breath she felt seeds sprout. Wings fire, roots tangled in her marrow, reaching for sky that awaited its next storm. Word count, Hugh 5405.